Hello, and welcome to the Regeneration-Z podcast, where we listen to the lived experience of the newest generation during our coming of age. I'm your host, Leman, and today we're talking to Karlie, a fellow intern at PTS this summer. Karlie and I dig deep into the topics that have been bubbling up again and again during this podcast. We talk about deconstructing our internalized racism, navigating relationships with conservative family, the complexities and challenges of living in racially diverse spaces, the need for more education around community organizing and development, Karlie's personal faith journey and its connection to the death rebirth cycle, how the Christian tradition offers us tools for dialogue around race in America, being queer and Christian, decolonizing Christianity, and finally, the realistic limitations of Christianity as a tool for reaching our generation. We start off the conversation by getting an update on Karlie's project this summer, which looks at the racism and mental health policy and her own relationship with race. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
Pretty much within the first week of studying what they gave me for law, I told them I don't want to go to law school. So that's been my plan for my whole life. Up until now, I've been pre-law since I came in as a freshman. So that was really overwhelming. I still have not told my family that I'm not going to go. So we'll see how that goes. So that was like what I've discovered from the other side of the project is that I'm not going to go to law school for this issue. But I've realized how passionate I am about this issue and how interested I am in really just self-educating and then spreading it to the people in my life that I think could benefit from it, like my family, for example. It has a lot to do with where I'm from and my upbringing and problems that I have with it. So I think it was a necessary thing for me to do, and it also just happens to be something that I'm passionate about. It happens to be something that is exploding in the world right now. And so it's been hard to filter out what is just hot right now and what do I really need to look at. Because, police brutality is really hot right now, but that's not what my project is about. So I've really stayed away from looking at those statistics and those articles because that's not what I was trying to look at in the first place. So that's been kind of the struggle with everything that has been coming up right now and all over social media and all the news. I have to try to filter that out. And what I look at in my personal day on my personal social media, I have to try to separate from what my project focus is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you foresee all of this research manifesting in some sort of like paper or video or is it just, or is there no final sort of deliverable and it's, I don't want to use the word just, I'm just curious.
No. I don't think there's any final vision yet, but I am taking a course in the fall to get the credit for it. So I'm not planning to stop when we meet on July 31st. I'm going to continue to expand out of personal interest and take it wherever it goes. If it turns into a big paper that I publish, then okay. And if not, then okay. I think regardless, I'm feeling it shape who I am as a person, and I know that I'm going to benefit from that whenever I leave school and end up doing whatever career. Like it's really challenging who I am and what I think and what I'm going to stand for, because I'm the type of person that if I'm going to defend something, I will defend it in front of anybody. But if I don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm not going to speak up. If I don't, I'm a very black and white. I know that issues are complicated, but I want to know my stance on something if I'm going to speak up about it. So even if I don't end up publishing anything, I'm more concerned about my individual growth on the inside. And if I choose to, put that out there online or in a paper and a video, maybe so. But if not, I plan to spread it, like I said, in my personal life to the people that are close to me.
Absolutely. And that's so much more valuable than academia or like something like that. And that's where I've also kind of been focusing, is just preparing myself for holding conversations with like family members and friends who just aren't as, aware of racism in America or educated or are resistant to it politically, even religiously. And because of that, I focused like a little bit on actual like understanding sort of how systemic racism is manifesting, and then a lot more this round. But this round, I mean like comparing it to Ferguson. This time, I've found myself focusing a lot more on like how to actually hold conversations in ways that are transformative and valuable, and not just like combative.
Right, just spitting my fact versus your fact, my fact versus your fact. Like, that doesn't change anybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I see what you're saying.
I'm curious if while you've been doing this research, if you've been engaging in conversation with friends or family or at the same time, or if you're kind of waiting until you feel a little bit more prepared to engage in that kind of thing.
So I've gotten really comfortable having these types of conversations because I grew up in a town, based off my research, I can give exact numbers. My home county was 85% white. And in that county was my town, which is a gated white community with one high school that had probably less than 5 black kids in the whole high school. So when I came to St. Andrews, Scotland County is 45% white. And my university specifically is, I would say, at least 60% African American, 25%, 20 to 25% international. And then there's me. So suddenly I'm the outcast and I'm all, whoa. And I realized really quickly that there was a really big problem with the way that I was raised. So I got really comfortable talking about it, honestly, because I realized how much I needed to learn. And the only way to do that was for me to really listen to the people around me and, see what they were saying in private conversations that they felt comfortable, enough to have with me. And now I live with 2 girls who are sisters, who are first-generation college students, first-generation U.S. citizens. Their father did come from Mexico whenever he was 16. He dropped out of school in 5th grade. So with them, yes, I have these conversations day to day. We're all digesting what's going on in the world. We see the things, similarly, but we also grow from each other. But it's not difficult to have those conversations. But when I call home, no, I'm not having those conversations yet because I can't. Because it's so deep in them that I know that I need to really prepare myself to be emotionally separated, because those are the people that I get out of bed every day for, and that I'm graduating at 24 and that I left for, because I want to make things different for us. I want to see the people that I love have true compassion and true love in their hearts, not just love for each other. I want them to open their minds, and I don't think staying in the same town for 6 generations can help a family do that. So, but I understand and I'm prepared that it's going to be very emotionally trying on me, because it's very hard to hear them on such a different side of something whenever they've been on my side my whole life. They have fought for me and I want to fight for them, but I can't on this. I have to step away. So, they're coming here in August into our house, and it's those kind of things that I'm like, ugh, So that's the answer to that. Friends, yeah. Family, no, not yet.
Yeah, that's so real, and it's something that I think a lot of white folk can find relatable, is being on one side of this sort of political divide within the family. Or I'm curious, do you feel like you have any allies in sort of your future aspirations to address these topics with your family? Or do you feel like you kind of have to do it on your own?
Allies, like a physical person?
Like for example, I'm thinking of, so my girlfriend's parents their kind of dynamic is very similar. She grew up small town, very conservative, moved to the other side of the country to go to school. And now when she goes home, it's really tough on her because she wants to have these conversations with her parents, but just the entrenched family dynamic adds a whole nother level of complexity and difficulty in being able to handle or facilitate these conversations, just because there's so much emotion that can get in the way. And so, you know, like, she just went home and she asked me to go back with her just for the sole purpose of, like, not feeling like she's the only person, like it's her whole family versus her, and being, you know, somebody that she can confide in. And I think that, you know, I think that everybody deserves that. I don't think anybody should feel like they have to kind of tackle these things on their own, or feel the weight of that responsibility solely on their shoulders. And probably, you know, in my experience being in California with them, it was very useful having me there, because her, you know, she needs a break sometimes, and B, her parents are just, like, more readily willing to listen to me as, like, a basic stranger than with her. And I think that like strategy just was more effective maybe than her trying to do it on her own.
So I have a couple of answers to that question. So the first thing about me having, like, an ally or bringing someone in, I come from, like, a conjoined family, a split family. So there's 6 of us. And in 2014, me and my sister were adopted by the other 2 kids' biological father. Okay. So it's me and my sister, and then we have another sister and a brother. And our biological mom is married to their biological dad. Does that make sense? Okay. It's really hard to kind of explain. So, like, there's me, my mom, my sister, and then them 3, we all conjoined. He adopted me and my sister.
Got it. Okay.
But we are very, very different. It was very hard to, adjust at first. But yeah, we're a huge family now, and, like, we get each other. But whenever you bring up really sensitive, deep-rooted issues like this, it kind of goes back to your roots. I mean, it goes back to where you started. And at the end of the day, like, we weren't raised together. We weren't. And that's, we were to an extent, but, the first 8-10 years of my life, no, we weren't. So I think it's hard to sit them all down together and explain it to them the same, because they each need something differently. Like, we haven't all been communicating together since day one. So we've learned individually how to adjust to each other, but it's really hard to, like, take the issue into the whole family at once. I don't think that'll ever work. And maybe, for any family it wouldn't, but I think it is important to recognize, the fact that we haven't been together from the day we were born. It does change things. It does. Not like our love for each other, but when you bring up really, really sensitive issues like this, I think it does, in, like, big moments of conflict, it really does. In big moments of tension, it really does. It does. It's noticeable, the way people react is different. So, and to the ally thing, the other thing I was going to say about it is that, unfortunately, even if I were to bring someone, for it to be useful to anyone but myself, my family would have to value their opinion. And unfortunately, I don't think that they would. I don't think that they would give a shit, honestly. I know who my ally is, and I know who I would take. And they would value my opinion more than hers. So, and it's not just because it's her. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. It's a pride thing. It doesn't, if I say it, they're going to only hear me out because I'm their daughter, or I'm their granddaughter, or I'm their sister. If I bring a stranger in, our family's very closed off. Very closed off.
Yeah, that is an interesting sort of counterpoint. I think that's totally true, not just for your family, but for other families. And yet that truth exists in complexity with the truth that, like, at the same time, I think in a lot of families, there's, like, a certain level of respect provided to strangers out of just, like, basic hospitality. Like Jenny would say, like, oh, when you're there, like, my mom wouldn't say certain things that she would say to me when you weren't there. And and that's like, I think that that's true too.
But then to me, that's like, okay, how much progress are you really making now?
Yeah,
because the things that they won't say, they're still there. They still think those things. And I've experienced that. Like, my ally is a girl that I've been with for 2 years. And I was openly gay and in gay relationships before I ever met her, before we ever were best friends, roommates, teammates. We were all of the above in college. And her mom invited me to live with them, knowing that I was gay. She said she didn't care, but now her daughter likes girls, and then it's a problem. So it's one of those things, you know, the gay thing was never a problem when I was around. She would never say it when I was around. But oh boy, I mean, it has rocked their world and destroyed their family. So it's like when you bring that up, I'm like, but you're not really addressing the issue. The issue's always there. You know, even if I was always going to be the gay friend who was always around, the whole I love you anyways, it's not there when your own kid does it. It's the end of the world. You've never really addressed the issue that you have with people who are gay. You know? Yeah. So that's kind of how, if it's like the whole you won't say it when they're around, you got to be more transparent than that. You got to get down to like the dirtiest, you know, the nitty gritty, like the most awful, judgmental things, and you have to be honest about them. That's how I genuinely don't think the same as my family anymore, because I really had to sit down with myself and be like, wow, that is fucked up that that's the way that you think, and you better fix it. With myself, you know? So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think you're right. Interesting. I'll have to reflect some on that.
Stop. You're making me think. I don't know. I wasn't like disagreeing with you. I was just I think my family might be a hard case to crack.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fine. I'm wrong all the time, so no worries. But yeah, don't feel bad about that. I love learning. I feel most comfortable when I'm the dumbest person in the room. I hate feeling like I'm
like you have to always know what to say.
Yeah, it's bad for my ego, and I really feel most comfortable when I'm learning, and I feel like I'm at my best self when I'm humble, and so I like surrounding myself with people who challenge me and have something to say that I haven't already thought. So, yeah, don't worry about challenging me. That's totally invited. Okay, yeah. So we've kind of been dancing around a lot of this already, but let's just get into these questions, and maybe we can get more of a clear sort of backstory, or I'm sure these same topics or conversations will kind of come back up. But so the first question is, what has been the most challenging and surprising part about young adulthood or growing up?
I don't even know how to like narrow it down. I've learned so much in the past 3 years, moving out of my hometown and home state, and then also so much in the past year, living completely on my own, paying my own bills, getting a house on my own in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, so even just in the past like 3 to 4 months, I think I've learned a lot of things that have surprised me about adulthood, and I'm still digesting those. So I'm sure that my answer, you know, even 6 months from now or 3 months from now, a year from now, is going to be so different. But right now, honestly, this is so hard to say. But I think the hardest part of adulthood right now has definitely been reflecting on and realizing the reality of my childhood and my family. And I think that the realization that none of them are willing to do it, and that's why they're all still in the same town, that's been the hardest part. That's definitely been the hardest part so far.
Yeah.
And I think that may continue to be the hardest part. It's way harder than figuring out how I'm going to pay my bills, or, you know, getting my heart broken by, you know, a girl or a boy or whatever. It's way worse. Way worse. So.
Yeah. I that's huge. I agree. And it's just so, you're right. It's on some level, it just feels more overwhelming or more unsolvable than a lot of other issues, which just feel more transient. Like a lot of other challenges we face, just, you know, they'll arise and then they'll leave. But with the family issue, it's like, they're my family forever. This is not going anywhere.
And no matter how much I sit and, you know, reflect on it, that is the way, that is my childhood, and that is what happened, and it's not going to change. So all you can do is, like, digest it and learn from it, and that's what I'm trying to do. But, you know, whenever you have put something off for so long and have been taught to put something off for so long, it's hard because you know, there's obvious reasons that you don't want to recognize things. So, but you can't do a halfway, you know, self-growth. You can't say, I want to figure out and do better for my family, but only some things. So you either ignore it all and, you know, you become what you've always been, or you take it, you know, head straight on and you do it all. And so, I mean, I'm doing it all, and I'm getting to the point where, you know, I'm older, and now that I really do have my own house and I'm not as reliant on my parents, I really can see things from like a bird's eye view. I mean, I'm the only one not there looking from the outside in. Literally the only family member looking from the outside in. So it is really starting to hit me. And I think like turning 20 really hit me like, wow, you really are an adult now. Like, you know, you're getting to the point in your life, you are going to live on your own for forever now. Like, so it's a process, but that's been the most challenging process so far.
Yeah. It's I think a difficult challenge for most people, but your specific situation seems exceptionally difficult, and I hope that, and even then with the situation of being gay and having a girlfriend being like your number one, that like, then you don't have the privilege that Jenny has of having like a straight white dude be their ally, you know? And so that's another level of complexity. But I'm curious, I'm curious about just like your story of what you've been deconstructing and like so it seems that like, did you intentionally choose to go to a school that was so diverse or no?
No, I was originally supposed to go to either Indiana University, which is a Big Ten school. It's where 50 to 60% of my graduating class from my high school goes every year. My whole hometown goes there basically and then comes back. So I was either going to go there, that's where my parents wanted me to go, took me there to visit my junior year and all of that, or I was going to go to the University of Southern Indiana, which is in my hometown, where my brother and sister both went. Got a lot of lacrosse offers, didn't want to play, so I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go to USI, signed up for housing, paid my deposit, had my roommates, and then I literally walked out of high school one day into the parking lot and checked my email, and it was April of my senior year. At this point it was February. I'm sorry, it was like the lacrosse season was starting, and I looked at my email and I saw an email from a school in North Carolina, and I had never been in North Carolina, so, because I wasn't originally looking on the East Coast at all. I was only looking within like 5-6 hours within my hometown, so like I hadn't even paid attention to any, you know, emails or offers from over here. And I called my mom and I said, I think I'm going to respond to this coach. Like, would you take me 12 hours away? I said, I looked up the school and it's 12 hours. And she said, wow. Yeah. And so I came, and like I said, I was already signed up to go somewhere else, but I came and they offered me the day that I came, and we were about to leave. And I just like looked at my mom and I was like, I want to do it. I want to commit today. And she was like, wow. You have to call your dad first. So I called him and I was like, I really like it. I want to do it. And he was like, okay. And I went back into the coach's office and I said, my dad said I can't come. I can't come. And I was like, I'm just kidding. And I signed the papers. So no, whenever I toured, I realized that like I was in the South and that there was like black people around me, but no, I had no idea. I visited the school one time. I just walked through the buildings. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I came and my roommate took me to a party the first night and I was the only white person there. And that was when I was like, what did I just do? What did I just get myself into? Like, I'm not going to fit in here. I literally told my parents, they were leaving the next day. They had moved me in. And they went to the hotel and she took me to a party. And I had the worst time. I was just up against the wall like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And, I found my way. But no, I did not intentionally. I was going to be the one who sits and goes back, I always said, like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to LA or whatever. But they always told me my way out was music, and I wasn't going to do that. So I was like, I guess I'll stay. And then I found St. Andrews. So it wasn't intentional, no.
That is an incredible story.
It was not intentional. It was very scary.
It sounds terrifying, but it, obviously transformative.
It was a I would do it again.
Yeah, I'm sure you've done all the hard work. Of course you would. Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel so I kind of was intentionally trying to have that experience and it didn't kind of work out the same way, but I also grew up in like a super white, super zip kind of situation and was aware of how problematic that was and aspired to put myself in more diverse and black, relationships and environments just to like, challenge my own internalized racism and grow as a person. And so I decided to go to a big state school in downtown Chicago because I just grew up in the burbs. And it is one of the most diverse campuses like in the country, but in reality there's still actually a surprisingly few amount of black people. It's mostly like it's like a ton of like Muslim first gen college students and Mexican American or Latinx and so it was still a huge step into a more like it was a huge step into a world that more accurately reflected what America is and is becoming. But I still like didn't necessarily feel kind of like inundated in black community or that kind of thing. So I'm kind of with my seminary choice, I was presented with the same exact crossroads where I had to choose between kind of two seminaries, and I decided to go to one on the south side that's mostly black, and we'll see how it goes. But I know it's gonna be like really tough because I'm basically like all of my classmates are middle-aged black women, and they're just gonna be like shitting on me for saying stupid things all the time, and I know that's gonna have to happen, but I'm looking forward to it.
Sure.
Yeah. So, do you have? This is just such a wild. You have such a wild story. I'm curious. Do you have any specific like stories that maybe are emblematic of some of this unlearning process that you've been going through?
You're gonna have to be more specific.
Like,
I am an open person. Like, you are gonna have to be more specific.
Okay, okay. So, is there a specific memory that comes to mind of a like mistake or like somebody or getting called out or a realization, like what were our moments of transformation that you kind of remember in the last few years? Is that still too broad?
Like at college.
Oh, okay, in college. Okay. I didn't know if you meant like my whole life or in college. The first one that comes to my mind, so my freshman year, the lacrosse team, I wasn't the only, I might have been the only, I think there was 2 white girls, and the other one, she didn't play, she was ineligible. So I was the only white girl. And some people handled it well and some people didn't, and there were a few girls who really didn't. But I didn't see it at first. Like, I was so ignorant to how ignorant I was, like, I didn't. And so they were constantly, like, mocking me and, like, doing things that I didn't even realize. And this one particular memory I remember, we were all sitting in the car in the parking lot doing what college students do. And, we're just hanging out, and they start asking me, like, how many bedrooms my house has and how many bathrooms.
Oh.
And what it looks like. And I just got really bothered because, yes, my family has a lot of new money. But what people don't see whenever they see me is that my mom was 16 and pregnant, and she graduated early and went to college, and my biological dad was a drug addict our whole life and an absolute deadbeat. And now my mom is the CFO of that company and remarried to a man who adopted us. So, yeah, my house now is beautiful. And it does have a lot of bedrooms and more bathrooms than we need and all this shit. But, like, that doesn't matter. And it really got to me. I was like, wow, that's really what they see. Like, they really see me as, like, just like a rich white girl. Like, they don't think there's any depth to that. When I really look at them and I think I have something to learn from them. And they look at me and see nothing, And so that's been hurtful. So that was one memory, because that was the first moment that I was like, damn. And I mean, it was like second semester of our season. We've been together. And then finally I'm like, wow, these girls have never liked me. They've never liked me. And once I realized it, they became absolutely hateful because I had realized it. They couldn't mock me anymore, Yeah. And they became really, really hateful, like on and off the field. Neither one of them came back. Like, one of them was captain and got kicked off. I was captain this past year. Like, it was a very, very bad, hard situation. And, it turned really, really quickly when I realized, but they were assuming I was something that I wasn't, something I'm trying not to be. And so it was just, that was hard. And it's hard whenever I feel like other people feel that way about me, because I want to learn from them. I think I have so much to learn from them. I don't think that I'm above them. Like, I truly am. I don't want to say I'm ashamed of the way that I was raised, but I know it wasn't right. So when people look at me and that's all they see and they really think that that's all there is to me, it's very hurtful. Like, it really gets to me. It bothers me, It doesn't bother me when people think that I'm, like, mean or dumb or bad at lacrosse or whatever, but it bothers me when people think that, like, I think that I'm really awesome. Because I really don't. So, That was one moment, but there's been a lot of those moments, and I think that was a big realization for me, and it made me want to change the way that I carry myself, because I take a lot of the responsibility for people saying that. I was taught to carry myself a certain way that isn't right. I think someone just rang the doorbell. Maybe not.
You want to go check?
No, not really.
Okay, valid. Who rings the doorbell in the middle of COVID?
So, I do take some of the blame for that. So it was there when I didn't realize it was there, but also, I want people to be as forgiving with me as I want to be with them. I want them to have grace on me and see that there can be more to me than that.
Yeah. It's so complicated because you deserve that, and they were wrong for treating you that way, and yet it's also this, like,
but, like, I understand. It's almost like I can't blame them, because their whole life, girls just like me have made their life probably shitty, honestly. So it's just, it sucks.
It does suck. It's that complicated reversal of, like, going from being in the dominant narrative that gives you the benefit of the doubt and sees that you're trying, and then all of a sudden being reversed, and it's like, oh, now nobody gives me the benefit of the doubt ever, and I have to constantly defend myself, or, like, nobody's seeing that I'm trying, and I've had experiences like that too, and it's so tough, but it's also like, this is like maybe a little taste of what it's like to not be white.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, I have so much grace on that experience because honestly, I needed it. You know, did it hurt at the time? And did it seem so crazy and like, why me at the time? Yeah. But do I have absolutely no angst against those girls, and do I understand, and are they, you know, onto different things and new lessons that they need? Of course. But you're right. You know, it's bittersweet because I learned so much from those experiences and they humble me so much. But at the same time, they're like also deeply unfair, you know, and they do at some points maybe stunt my growth instead of, you know, because sometimes they make me just want to be closed off and not try. Because I think if I think that someone already thinks that about me, it's intimidating sometimes to where I don't want to try to change their mind. I just fall back. You know, with certain people, I'll just be like, let me prove you wrong. Let me show you. But certain people, I just feel, like I said, you know, intimidated. It hurts, you know, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of white people experience this, like, of the, like, just handful of people who grow up in super white spaces who, like, have the guts or the stupidity to try to pop that bubble. Like, even then, of that just small segment of white people who enter into, like, more brave or challenging, diverse spaces, then get this first experience of rejection for like warranted reasons, and then I feel like probably a lot of them give up and go back to their ivory tower because it's like it's hard, and so nobody wants to like we're in a position where we can choose to be in an environment in which
or try the hard way.
Exactly. And so, you know, it's like it's like why it's so hard not to just be like, okay, you don't want me here? Fine. I'll go back to my little utopia, or like it that's, you know, so when I see that happening, or when those experiences happen to me, it makes me sad because like not only is it painful to have like your own ego get, you know, challenged or just to get bullied on some level, but also on another level I'm like, this is so counterproductive to just like, but
it's moving in the same direction.
Yeah. But then it's like, but it's just so complicated. I have honestly never encountered anything as complicated in my life as trying to navigate race like dynamics or race relationships, because then on the other hand there's always like another side to things forever, and like on the other side of things it's not black people's responsibility to try to make white people feel safe so that they like get proximate and like
exactly, like it's not their responsibility to make us feel accepted to where we want to learn about their side,
right. which is why, yeah, but boy, it's something else. And yeah, damn.
Yeah.
Okay. This is good. So this is kind of similar, but what resources, relationships, and experiences have made you who you are?
Okay, I'm only opening this because I think it's a book from, pause our little interview. I think it's a book from Aaron that I want to... Oh,
sweet.
No, it's not.
What is it?
My screen protector for my new phone that's coming in. That's not even here yet. I know, but the phone's not here yet, so it's like... Whatever.
Well, I'm curious what book Erin recommended.
Oh, so she sent me 3, and they all like handle the race, issue in some way. And some of them are more like informative. Some of them were kind of like narrative based. And then the one that I chose is it's either, I think it's like 6 weeks or 60 days or something, and each day has a prompt. And it's like, it's to make you more aware of like your own, privileged thoughts and, just to break out of your own mindset basically. But I picked that one because it has, the prompts for you. So I thought, and it would also, help me do something every day. So that's why I chose that one. And I told my mom about it on the phone this morning, and I was like, I think I'm going to send you these books once I read them. So that's a good starting point.
Yeah, it is. And I'm a huge reader, and a lot of my family likes to read some too. Mostly they just read evangelical propaganda, but but they still read a lot of books. And I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, a book club would be a great way to sort of engage with the family around in a way that's not just fighting.
Right. It's not even your own words. Like, it's, you all are going to have to read and digest somebody else's stuff and then, see what you think on it.
And maybe that kind of links back to a way to the ally conversation where it's like, it's not just me versus my whole family. It's like also this like expert who wrote a book.
You're right. That they would listen to that way. If I sent my parents a book or a recording of me and my friend, they would read, or tried to bring my friend, they would read the book first, for sure. So
yeah,
that's actually a really good point.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, my boss, because she works for Church Plant Initiative at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and so she's the one that's recommending me books, and she recommended me one second. It's called Community, the Structure of Belonging by Peter Block. Holy shit, I have never... This is like probably my favorite book, and I read a lot, and I just like have not been so transformed by a book.
Really?
And it's really... It was just so powerful, and it completely transformed the way I view leadership. It like has a sort of implicit understanding of community as basically completely synonymous with activism. Like, they're not even separate concepts in the book, community and activism. They're just like the same concept. And it just, I feel like, we live in this totally individualistic culture in which there is a lot of inundated resources for personal development and personal reflection. There are a lot of books like the one you're talking about of like, offering or inviting us into personal reflection. But there's not a whole lot of resources, or there's not a whole lot of collective knowledge around building community, facilitating community, holding transformative space, thinking about change, and thinking about reflection from like a non-individualist perspective, and that's like been a huge gap of I did realize it before reading these books. I just didn't know what books to read. I didn't know where to get this knowledge, but as I've been growing up, I've been encountering all of these ideas and reading all these things that I feel like have equipped me to, invite other people into this journey of like deconstructing white supremacy and sexuality and gender and all of the things that Generation Z is like deconstructing. And but I haven't, but when I've tried to actually engage with other people, it just goes poorly, and I realize it's because I don't have the tools to be able to do that. And this book, I really feel like offers that, and I'm really like, it's called Community, the Structure of Belonging by Peter Block, and it's just a wonderful balance between theory and practical application or examples, and I learned a ton. And then this book right here, which I just started, Another Way, this is basically the exact same content, but through a more Christian perspective. And they cite Peter Block all the time in this book. So these two books together, I feel like, really work well. But it's a lot of like, it's a lot of like how to facilitate discussion and community that is transformative. For sure relevant to the kinds of things that we're thinking about. And it's painted a picture of leadership as this like grassroots, bottom up kind of, counter patriarchal role of instead of the leader being the one that like inspires or offers a vision or manages or instills ownership and accountability. That's like all the things that I was kind of taught to view leadership as, and these books just completely challenge that and be like, no, the leader's job is just to basically hold space or facilitate discussion, and then the community does all of that work. The leader just sets it up and keeps it running, but it's the community that comes up with the vision. It's the community that instills ownership and accountability. It's the community that really fulfills all of these functions that we normally absolve to some sort of leader. And we see this in politics today where we're just trapped in this false thinking that all of our problems can be solved by just choosing a better leader or electing a better representative. And it's like,
you have to be a better community.
Yeah. It was great. It's super good. Do you have any thoughts?
No, those sound great though. Like I wrote them down, and I would be really interested in reading them.
Yeah.
Because you have a great point.
Yeah, and that's just one of the many points in these books. I'm thinking about doing a live stream maybe to talk about it, or I want to do a book club on the book itself, but my small group elected to read another book, which is fine. But okay. So kind of getting back into your story, what resources, relationships, and experiences have made you who you are?
On the forefront, I would say every relationship and resource and experience has made me who I am, if I'm being honest, but that's a very, very cliche answer. But I do think that's the truth. I really do. I think that, like, day to day, each moment, I am learning, and I think that I've learned from people who I've spent years of my life with, and I've learned from people who I saw for 2 minutes on the side of the street. And I think that either one of those relationships has power to give me wisdom at any time. I don't think, I don't value a stranger and a relationship with a stranger any more or less than one that I've already developed. I've realized in my life that relationships come and go, and people come and go. And that's okay, because that's the cycle of life. But as far as if we really do want to get specific and you're looking for a specific answer and a specific person, as much as I want to run away from it and not talk about it and not say it, definitely my relationship with my biological father shaped everything about who I became as I was growing up. Definitely ran my life for about 4 years after I stopped seeing him until I came to college. I would say who I was at that time was a person and a girl running off complete anger and confusion. And I was a very different person because of that. That was what fueled me. The anger from that relationship and the confusion from that relationship and my view on the world because of that relationship and because of the experiences I had in that relationship. And now I would say that the relationship I have created with myself through God and through learning about how much value I believe the universe and this world has, and my place in it gives me value. The fact that I was created, and the being that is in me is also within everything else in the universe, and that gives me respect for myself and respect for the person next to me on the street. That gave me a very different view of the world and gave me a very different reason to keep going in the world. So that really changed me, as I would say, letting go and viewing that relationship and those experiences differently. So it's the same relationship kind of, but how I viewed them because of my relationship with God now really changed who I am as a person.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying is that your relationship with God allowed you to rewrite kind of how you view your past, or not rewrite, but maybe...
I wouldn't say necessarily how I view it, because there's no positive way to view it. It's ugly and it's dark and it's absolute evil. There's no other way to view it. But God and my relationship with God gave me a purpose outside of that evil. And understanding that being subject to that evil doesn't make me evil. So I would say I still view, I guess, like, if you mean, like, view it in, like, the meaning of, like, why it happened, my view of it, like, yeah, my view changed. But viewing it, like, literally how I see it and how I remember it, no, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's one of those complexities of that we can hold those two different pictures at the same time. So I'm curious, and this is kind of leading us into our next questions, but which are about God. But I'm curious to hear a little bit more about, like, how, are there particulars to how your relationship with God freed you or offered you a new image of yourself and a path forward?
Yeah, I think kind of what I mentioned before, whenever I stopped trying to view God as, like, this image of Jesus that I've been seeing since I was little, of, like, a white man with brown hair, and literally being, like, like a man of, grace and power and who made me and all that was never going to work for me. It was never going to click for me that some man had all this power and made me and did these things. That was never going to work, for pretty obvious reasons, I think. Psychologically, I don't think it was ever going to click with me. And I always really struggled. I'm like, why is this so hard for me to feel comforted by this? Well, in hindsight, I think it's pretty obvious why it's hard to feel comforted by that, and hard to feel comforted, as going into churches with mostly male staff and telling you not to have sex and not do this. And, well, that's just kind of, I don't know. Okay, I don't want to get into that. But I would say when my view of who God was and what God was and creation and all these things transformed when I came to St. Andrews and started studying religion. So I started getting, like, this academic view of things instead of this, Midwestern, non-denominational, white view of everything. Yeah. And then I was like, wow, maybe this does make sense. And maybe I can stand for this and believe in this. And this finally is clicking, because in my life, when I would go to camps and I would have these experiences and, like, I would feel connected and I would feel empowered and I would feel renewed. But then I would go back into that environment and feel so out of place. And so this is not it. I don't agree with this. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel loved. Like, if this is really all there is, and this isn't for me. And then when I came here and started learning, St. Andrews is a Presbyterian church. Presbyterian, like, affiliated originally. So, but the classes aren't strictly Presbyterian. I mean, we learn from very different, perspectives. But we read in one of my classes this year, I think it was John Tillich. A lot of books. I still have them all. But it basically explains God as not a being, because all we know is material things. All we can picture in our heads is something that you can physically see or touch or taste or smell, because that's all we know. But it explained that God is not a being, but is being itself, the being of everything. And I have that being in me, and you have that being in me, and the trees, and, everything. And I just remember being like, oh, like it just completely transformed my view of who or what God was, and my relationship with, God and the Lord, and what that means. I don't know. And I'm still in the process of that, because that was only, 6 months ago. And yeah, that was this year. That was I always knew, like, I never wanted to reject God or reject that I was made for something, and that we were all made for something, and that we were all created to live, a unified life in some way. But I just hadn't figured out where to navigate that. And, nothing that I had heard appealed to me, honestly, I was going and I was leading worship, and I was interning and planning services, and I used the #1 music school in the world, and in the nation. I'm sorry, maybe the world, the nation. Juilliard, I think, is probably #1 or something.
American exceptionalism.
Yeah, I know. Excuse me, but it's because I really don't care, And so I really don't, I never did, but I was doing all these things, leading the worship and leading the services, and feeling connected to the Lord when I was doing those things in the moment on my own, but never from the church community, never from what they were preaching, never from being around, So it was very confusing and made me very closed off. I mean, my brother is gay as well. We're not biological, so it doesn't have anything to do with that, despite what everyone wants to say. It has nothing to do with that. But he was obviously never accepted in most of, the churches that we grew up in, and the community just always treated our family differently. We were always the family that everyone was nice to, because me and my sister sang worship, and, we're friends with the preachers because of it, and, we sat in the second row on Sundays. But when they turned their backs, oh, those girls drink, those girls are promiscuous, they're this, they're whatever. We were never the family that did all this Sunday church stuff, We were not the picture perfect family. Either way, we're tatted, we're pierced, we're a blended family, like it is what it is, and they didn't like that. And my parents want to, swallow their pride and be a part of it anyways, and I was like, no thanks, I'm not interested. And so it really pushed me away. And the town that I'm in now is really small and has church communities, but they're like, they're very, very small. And there's not one like directly affiliated with the university, so I just shied away from it most of my freshman year, but started studying religion academically. And now I've definitely accepted it back into my personal life and as like a part of myself as an individual outside of academia.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful.
Oh, actually, there is something else I want to share.
Okay.
Outside of that I can't believe I didn't think of this right away. The other really big experience that made me shy away from it, like the last straw. And after this, I was like, I'm done with church, and I'm mad at God, and I can't take it anymore. In high school. So I grew up performing since I could walk. My sister was 6 years older than me and did it before I was even born, so I was born into it. And there was this girl, and her name was Sophie, and she lived in our hometown, and her dad was the head pastor of the biggest church. And I mean, this girl had the voice of an angel, and I was always the one growing up. I was the pretty one who could sing, and I always got the parts in the musicals, and I was the dancer, and that's what I was known for at school. And I was never good at sports, and I was never like anything else. And so that's what I was known for, and that's what my sister was good at in our hometown. And so I was just always so jealous of her. I was like, she's so good, and she's better than me, so I know if she auditions for the same thing as me, like, she's gonna get it. And she's pretty, and she's nice, and I don't understand how she's so happy, so I don't like her. And I would just resent her so much. And she sat across from me in our first period class, our junior year. We had talent shows together, school together our whole lives, and never had a class together since we'd gone together since elementary school. sat across from me our junior year, and I remember just sitting across from her and being like, she has it all. Like, how, what is it like to be her? What is it? And then listen. So, I wake up for church on a Sunday morning, and my sister comes in my room, and she's like, "Did you know Sophie?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, hold on, my roommates are locked out. I'm coming. Sorry. So she says, Sophie, and we led worship at the competing church. The two biggest, they led worship at the other big church. Me and my sister led worship at the competing big church in our town. Like, literally 2 minutes from each other. Both big, white, non-denominational churches, So I'm like, yeah, I know Sophie, obviously. And she just like sat on my bed, and she said, her and her dad got into a car crash last night, and they didn't make it. And I just like sat up and I said, what? And she said her dad, her grandma, and her sister were all in a car crash last night. And they were coming back from a band competition, and my brother was in band, and they had just won. And Sophie was in the band, and she played the flute, but they had her sing for the part, and they won. They went all the way, and they won the whole thing because of her voice. I mean, she was literally sang like an angel. And I did choir, and I never had to compete with her because she did band. And I was always so glad, because she never had time to audition for anything, so I never had to be around her. And I was so glad. And then she died, and it was the most transformative experience of my life, because I was like, who the hell are you, and why are you so mad at this girl who never did anything to you? And I had class with her little sister the next year, and she really like confided in me, because she knew me and Sophie both sang, and that we knew each other, and she never knew that I resented her. And I watched her little sister the next year. I mean, she is destroyed. She lost her dad, her grandma, and her sister at the same time, and she had to identify the bodies.
Jesus.
And then that same year, there was another girl named Davis. Very Christian girl, very involved in church, very beautiful. Joins the lacrosse team. And I'm like, I felt threatened. So I'm captain, and I'm teaching her, how to play. And all the girls are talking about her after practice, and I'm like, she's just too nice, like there's got to be a catch. And that's what I used to say about Sophie. She's just too nice, There's got to be a catch. There's no way she's a nice girl. And 2 days later, Davis got hit by a car, and she died in our hometown with her little sister on the sled with her, who was also my teammate, who I was friends with. So then I thought again, what is wrong with you, and why are you so mad? Like, I think God is trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
Like, staring at Sophie's empty desk across from me, God's trying to tell you something. Talking to Davis 2 days before she died, knowing that I was jealous of her. I told her to her face, you're really good. You should keep coming. You're good. But in the back of my head, I was pissed. I was pissed that she was good. And I was pissed that she was pretty. And I was pissed that people liked her. And so that was my moment. That year was my low point. Left my friends. I had nobody. And because I was like, you don't want to be this person. You need to figure out why you're so angry and redo it. And I moved away. So that was, I think, God smacking me in the face. But did I find God right after that? No, I was really, really mad at God and really confused,
Yeah.
So that was just a really crazy year. And it was, 2 years after we were adopted, still in the same town. So it was quite the experience.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. I have so many questions. Or just, it
made me want to figure out what I'm living for. And I personally don't think without finding, love and respect for your creator, whoever you think it is, whether you think that you have the same creator as me or not, I don't think that you can find, what you're living for without finding that. Otherwise, you're just you're just walking with no purpose. I'm not saying everyone has to think, the same God story as I do, but I hope everyone finds their purpose.
What?
I know it's heavy.
I'm just trying, it's a lot.
Trust me, I could go on, but, and on, and on, and on.
Yeah, that is really heavy. Okay. So something that I've been thinking about listening to your story and listening to other people's stories is this process that we see laid out for us in the Bible of death and rebirth, or deconstruction and reconstruction. And we go through these times in our lives where our image of God or our image of ourselves, usually at the same time, get challenged by truth, or the real God, as opposed to the God, as opposed to boyfriend Jesus
for us, right?
Right. And it's never fun. It's always full of doubt and confusion and pain and suffering, and it's usually triggered by some traumatic event, or Richard Rohr says our greatest teachers are great suffering and great love, and it's only through these death periods in the death rebirth cycle that we really can be transformed, or God is only through that God is revealed to us, or that we are able to see God in a bigger, more powerful, truer way. It's only through that our relationship with God grows. We can't learn without first letting go. And I'm curious just why the church seems to have forgotten about that entire half of the spiritual journey. and actively tries to repress it, and shames people for it, and abandons people during it. And part of me wonders, and I see this in the Bible too, or the Bible's role during these sort of periods of challenging God and challenging ourselves. It seems almost as if God has designed it to be that way, to push us out into the desert, into the wilderness. And like for the example of the Bible is something that when we are in a rebirth period, when we have some sort of revelation, some new image of God that's bigger, that's more true, that's more life-giving, then the Bible is this beautiful tool for reconstruction. But then when we're angry at God, the Bible is this old book that everybody uses to oppress each other.
You're very right. And it's all, and that's why it's so dangerous. It's such a dangerous, powerful tool, because we've given it so much power in some instances, but have also used it for the wrong things, So that's why I've also, have such a weird relationship with the Bible, and I'm working on that. I want to have a desire to turn to the Bible because I do believe that it is the word for a reason. I do believe, in the Bible. And do I think that everything in the Bible literally happened? No. But do I think that it is the word that was given to us by the Lord for a reason? Yes. But in the way that it was pushed on me and taught to me and the view that I was given of it, it's made me have absolutely no desire for it. So, I'm working on reconstruct with this new idea of the Lord that I have and the God that I have. I'm working on and praying for, reconstructing my idea of the Bible as well, so that I can, want to turn to the Word. And because if I turn to it without having a desire for it, I'm not going to get anything from it. If I sit down and try to read it with this terrible notion that I have, it's not going to matter. So until I feel a true pull and desire in my heart, I'm not going to force myself. I'm going to wait until God helps me to be ready. I've had to let go of a lot of other things and be open to a lot of other things that are, right in my face materialistically in my life, right? Like things that I've had to pray for, grace on, that I have to face in life right now, certain people, things like that. So I think that is probably why I'm working through that more slowly, And is that right? No, it's not. The Bible should be the first thing that I'm, showing grace to, because clearly, obviously, that goes without saying, unending grace from, our Creator. Why am I turning away the one resource that I have to connect me? I don't know. Is it something that I'm proud of? Of course not. But am I honest about it? Do I come by honest? Yeah. So, I'm trying to work through it. But it was, 18 years built up of not wanting a relationship with the Bible. So I'm going to try to give myself grace if I need some time.
For me, I think that, we're taught to view the Bible as basically a task, a transaction. Like if you're going to be a good Christian, you read the Bible, check, to-do list. But I think that what makes the Bible magic, what makes the Bible divine, is that it meets us where we're at always, even when that means not reading it. Like during the death part of the death rebirth cycle, during that part, the letting go process of our spiritual journey, the part that brings us into a more mature understanding of God and ourselves, the Bible serves to push us away from Christianity and push us away from our old images of God, and in ways that are threatening to the church, but actually are productive for that process of letting go. And so I think that when people go through that part of their spiritual journey where they just see the Bible as patriarchy and white supremacy and anti-science and untrue, old or vestigial, that's threatening to Christianity. But actually that's the Bible. I think that the Bible is actually intended to function in that way during that period, because only in pushing us out into the wilderness will we ever really be able to return to the Bible in the light that it was intended.
Right. So if you see it in that way, then you can see it for what it really may have been intended for.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
That's how I view what has happened in my life with race. I had to be pushed out, into St. Andrews, into the wilderness, to be able to look back and see what was wrong in the first place, And that's what the process that I'm trying to, expose my family to, hopefully, at some point.
Right, exactly. And that's the process. And we see this story over and over again in the Bible itself, in the story of Moses, right? He has to be chased out of Egypt to really realize the situation of being like the oppressor and the colonizer. And then it's only in like being in the wilderness, living with the Midianites, that he sees a new picture of what community looks like and of what God intended for human society to look like. It's only in leaving Egypt that, not even consensually, it's only in God chasing him out of Egypt that then he is able to be invited back to Egypt under that new light. Yeah.
Very, very good comparison.
Yeah, I think that gives me hope that these stories are in the Bible. And that's why I still engage with Christianity and love Christians, even Christians who are like not like just completely resistant to that death rebirth cycle, because I think that like the Christians I engage with, they all just are trying, or they all want to do the right thing, and inside of their faith, inside of Scripture, there is truth. And that's like hopeful for me, that like I have this shared body of work and shared culture that I can sit down with my aunt and uncles and talk about Moses, and that story is powerful and transformative and true, and that offers me a beautiful connecting point and avenue in which to engage in these conversations, to be like, you gotta like challenge some of these certainties that these things that you've subscribed to that provide you safety, because they're idols, they're not true. So I'm interested in bringing Christianity into the picture when we're doing the work of being white people talking to other white people about race. I think that Christianity could be a really useful tool in doing that kind of work.
And how so?
Because I think that the value system that Christianity is built off of, and I think that like the truth in Scripture is fundamentally anti-racist, and I think that the authority of Scripture could be an avenue in which to challenge people's perspectives. And I think that Christianity itself, I think the Holy Spirit is a moving and a shaking in a myriad of ways outside of the Christian world. Like, just because church membership is declining doesn't mean that the Holy Spirit is moving and shaking any less today than it was yesterday. However, I do think that the Christianity and Scripture is fertile ground, or is a useful toolkit of metaphors and symbols and ways to talk about God that provide it's useful tools to talk about truth and talk about God and race too. I mean, I think, yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that it's just, it's like one of those scales like this. It's hard because you can try to, approach the race issue with Christianity, and you either get someone who's been exposed to it in a positive light, and you have people who use Christianity to speak about race in a positive light, like you. Or you have people who've had the bad experience with it, and then the people who use it to, justify their thoughts on race. And, I just think that there's this really big notion in society, especially in our generation, because it's been so exposed in our generation, with, Christians using the Bible to justify, white privilege and all of these things, their actions, and not even just race, obviously, being a gay woman in the church, you hear a lot of different answers that apparently the Bible has and explains. So, if someone were to come to me and try to, on the forefront, use the Bible to explain why they do or don't view me as equal to them for being gay, I might say, I don't really care. So I think that it's dangerous because a lot of people use faith as a screen, and I see that and I'm aware of that. So if someone comes to me, and I can't say race, I'm speaking through a lens of sexuality because that's what I can relate with. So I can imagine that people with race could relate in the same way. And if someone were to come to me with, this forefront of Christianity and they want to show me, their openness of sexuality because of what they think the Bible says, I'm going to be really skeptical. Because I'd much rather that person show me why they think I'm equal to them as a person outside, of that, and then bring faith into it.
Interesting.
So for me, and that's because for me, I've had so many negative experiences or people prove to me that their faith isn't what they say it is, So through their actions as a person on a personal level. So to me, creating faith-based relationships has become a very hard thing to do because I've had so many people promise and say and make these commitments through the Lord and through the scripture. And it's all bullshit. Because at the end of the day, they do still see me as different for being gay, or they see my sin as, bigger than theirs because mine is on my sleeve and I don't care. Because I don't think it's a sin. I don't. I truly, in the bottom of my heart, will never be convinced that the love that I have been shown through being with Sky is something that the Lord did not want me to experience. But I've been turned away so many times and been shown so many times through faith experiences, quote unquote faith experiences and faith-based relationships, that someone coming to me now and, using it as a tool, a positive one, is almost makes me more weary. And so, like I said, I can't look at it through a race lens because I'm a white female, but I can look at it through the lens as a gay female and know that I would be really hesitant. So I can understand where someone, on the other side of the race issue would be really hesitant, because a lot of people use faith as a big banner to really just cover up what the hell they're doing. And so if someone comes to me being like, here's faith and it's why I accept you, I'll be like, but do you really? Right. Like, why can't you just come to me as a person and be like, here's why I accept you? And maybe that's where my Gen Z comes in, because I'm this really like hippie, open-minded, like, I just want to feel your vibes type of person, I don't want you to, I don't need you to come to me and tell me your views on faith. I want to feel if you accept me or not on a personal level, and then we can talk about faith. That's how I feel, because I don't know. And I think that's just because maybe I've accepted that, like, my main goal right now isn't necessarily like to be around people who are in, the same faith as I am, and that's okay. So, maybe that's why my response to that is really different.
That's completely valid. I think that's true.
Like, I just think it's important to recognize all of the, like, if you're going to tackle the issue and use, faith and Christianity as a tool, you have to remember all of the terrible things that faith and Christianity have also become in our generation. Because, like, I'm that side of that. Like, I told Cece, if I would have known what this internship really was, I would have said, no freaking way. No way. I'm serious. And, like, I mean, I'll be more honest with you about it than I was with her, because I don't want to offend anybody or make anyone think I'm not grateful. But when I found out, I was, like, pissed. Like, didn't think I was ready at the time, to have, like, a faith-centered internship and, like, share with all these people my personal, I just wasn't interested in that. And so and that's because of the negative experiences I've had before. And, like, have I prayed for my heart to be open and have, Aaron and Cece and, has the group been amazing? Yes. Like, it's terrible that I thought that, but is that the truth? Yeah. And is that probably the reaction and feeling that you would get from a lot of people, trying to tackle a race issue using Christianity? Yeah. And those might be the most important people, those might the hardest people to reach. Those are the ones, not the most important because everyone's important, but you know what I mean? Like, I just think you may not reach, the most beaten and battered people that way. The people who really need the Christian, a new idea of what Christianity is.
Right. Yeah, I think that I'm not trying. I don't think that me personally, I don't view myself as like using Christianity to reach the disinherited or those who are oppressed by Christianity, but to communicate to the oppressor, like my aunts and uncles, as somebody personally who also isn't oppressed by Christianity. And I wouldn't ask or invite other people like you, people who have been burned by the church in like huge ways, to do that. On the other hand, though, like if you look at like liberation theology and the Black church, there are large communities of oppressed people that do use Christianity as like an anti-racist tool or or as like a tool for decolonization and liberation. And I don't think that's necessarily my work, but it's out there, and I think that the prerequisite to doing that is you have to kill white Jesus. You have to decolonize the Gospels. But what's hopeful for me is that Jesus isn't a white supremacist. It's not like the Bible is white supremacist. It's that the Bible and Christianity has been infected by white supremacy. But the actual heart of it is still like,
pure.
I mean, we're talking about like, we're talking about a brown, poor, potentially like gender queer, like revolutionary and radical, just basically for the entire story challenging imperialist forces and patriarchal forces, and like the actual like inherent values and stories in the Bible, especially in the Gospels, are like so radically anti-racism that it's just like, that's why I still like feel called to Christianity in a beautiful way. Yeah. But I for sure see, I think that it's important not to get dependent on that, though, because I want to be in relationship with people who don't feel comfortable using that particular toolkit of metaphors and symbols for talking about God or life. And I grew up secular, and I have lots of secular friends, and so I am in kind of a unique position where I can just like set literally the entire box of Christianity aside and still function as a human being and like still engage in real conversations with people and not like be completely dependent on that particular language. And I think that is important for thinking about like how the church is going to serve Gen Z, because so much of Gen Z is so profoundly skeptical and bitter when it comes to the church, that it's probably just more realistic to reach much of my generation through other avenues than the specific Jesus story. And that's a hard truth that a lot of people aren't going to accept, and maybe I don't think I've totally accepted that myself. But that makes me sad just to say that out loud, because I really do think that the Jesus story in the Bible is just so powerful, and so like it's so potentially fruitful and has been so transformative in my life that it makes me sad that like white supremacy and capitalism have tarnished it to such a degree that it's inaccessible now to most of my peers.
I think that it is sad, but I think that it is the nature of the universe, and I think that the truth of the universe is that some people are going to make it and some people aren't. Some people are going to get it and some people aren't. So I think that it's hopeful to know that we're in a time where there's people like you who at least see the Jesus story for what it could have been, you know, and can recreate that picture in a world that has absolutely destroyed it. Like, at least be optimistic that you're on the end of like the dip in the economy, you know, it like goes down and it like comes back up. Like we've gotten, you know, maybe we haven't seen the worst of it. Maybe things are gonna, you know, stay bad, whatever. Maybe the world's gonna stay chaotic like this. But at least we've gotten to a point where there are people and there is a generation that's saying, you know what, this is so screwed that we need to start over. And yeah, that's sad, but it's way more sad to keep on going with this, you know, white supremacy view of Jesus. That's way more sad to have people, you know, oppress and kill and be violent in the name of Jesus rather than recreating a new story of Jesus. You know, like let that be your mission. That's not sad. That's fucking awesome. Like that's fucking awesome in my opinion. Like that's not sad. So, but I see why that's depressing to say, you know.
Well, what's exciting for me is for sure like this reconstruction work or reimagining of like what the church could be, just like start over from scratch kind of situation, or like what's the real truth and interpretation of Scripture. But what's sad is the reality that like I could reconstruct this beautiful theology. I don't need to. Other people have. Like, I can read Richard Rohr and Howard Thurman and other beautiful theologians who have done this work already. And I can build a beautiful Christian community that, like, embraces this progressive theology or reconstructed theology and lives it out in really tangible ways and is, like, an actual picture of what God intended. And yet still then, just because of the label Christianity or because of like the use of the Jesus story as like a connecting point or a value system, it's going to be inaccessible to like a lot of my like dear friends, like a lot of the people who are closest to me in my life and who I honestly believe need community the most. Like, yeah, that's what's sad.
And that's where, I mean, I guess that's where, like, you have to trust that that's beyond you. You know, them finding the Lord is so beyond our purpose and so much more than we are. Their place in this universe is, you can't, you know, imagine the value that someone else has. So, I guess you just have to, you know, trust that it happens for them or it doesn't. But that's not, I know you don't see it as your responsibility, but that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I just hope that, like, Christianity is just such a great platform around which to build community. And I just hope that, like, if I'm building a Christian community, somebody else is having the forethought to like take care of my friends by building a community that's like more accessible to them. Like, I don't want just Christians or just people who like are in a position to be able to feel comfortable in a Christian context to have access to like beloved community.
Right, like you want a community that's for everyone, but you don't want to have to shy away from the label of Christianity just to accommodate to everybody.
Right, because Christianity is fucking dope.
Right. That's what I was going to say. You shouldn't have to. Like, you know, it's not your fault that, you know, everything you said, it's sad that white supremacy and all this has been infected. You know, you're right. Like, that's not you. You shouldn't have to shy away from a label that, you know, you are for and that you think is fucking awesome, just because it's been so tainted. You know, that's not the real idea of what it is, and that's not on you. But it is a hard reality.
And I think it would just be profoundly scary to try to build some sort of community without Christianity. Like building community within a Christian context, it's like, okay, I'm resting on like the like teachings and backs of like some of the wisest, most prophetic mystics in the last 4,000 years, 8,000 years. Like, it's just being held by some kind of structure. It's like if you just let go of Christianity entirely, and if I just tried to build something like outside of that, build a spirituality outside of it, build a relationship with God outside of that, build a community outside of that, it just seems so much more profoundly difficult to do. I don't want to have to like reinvent the wheel when there's already like so many, you know, beautiful thinkers and available to me through the Christian tradition.
And like, what would you say that your definition of Christianity is? Like, how do I know if I can identify with a Christian community or not?
I mean,
because I couldn't give you an honest answer. I don't know. I don't even know. Like, I don't know what it takes to say I agree with this or I don't. I haven't had anybody lay out a transparent answer for me in a long time.
About just like what a progressive theology looks like, or an affirming.
What I feel like there's so many different versions of what Christianity is. Like, I'd really like to know like what it actually is.
So I subscribe mostly to contemplative Christianity, contemplative tradition. So like Franciscans, also like liberation theology, specifically through a contemplative practice like Howard Thurman. But it's for sure that mysticism rooted spirit like Christianity that I like. I'm like, that's the true Christianity. That's like the truth in the tradition. And, you know, those are just labels. If you want to actually get into what those labels mean, I could for sure recommend some books or or what that looks like for me is just a whole, like, I'll just call you another time and tell you a little bit about, like, my spiritual journey.
That's a deal.
I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you if I could be a part of your Christian community or not, because I don't even know what that means.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the last 3 years I've been in a campus ministry called the Inclusive Collective.
I see that on your shirt.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing a shirt right now. This is my only one. I'm not like that into it. It's just a coincidence. But okay, I'm kind of into it. But it's dope. It's like 80% queer, maybe more. And it's led by Rich Havard, who grew up in like a Southern Baptist context and like moved to Chicago and came out as a gay man and started a church. And I mean, the interesting thing about like that community is that it's not super rooted in a specific theology, like as an institution. Like, I would say the leadership all like are very like rooted in Richard Rohr. But it's mostly, I mean, it's obviously progressive theology, but it's interesting. It's mostly like a queer church. It's like by queer people, for queer people. I'm like one of the few straight people in it, but I just like show up for the good theology, and I like being friends with queer folk, so they're good people. But yeah, I think that's a great point, Karlie. It's like, people also just don't even have an image accessible to them of what a good Christian community looks like. Like, people don't even know what it could look like. And so that's like, you know, when people leave Chicago, they ask my pastors, like, I'm moving to this location. What church can I join that's not going to, like, that has decent theology and is not going to, like, you know, force me to change, or is going to, you know, deny my sexuality. And it's so sad because a lot of times we don't have an answer. Like, a lot of times this kind of community I'm in right now, this kind of progressive Christian space, is not accessible to most people, especially small town. Like, it's like you can find progressive Christianity in like a vibrant way in big cities, but just not really a whole lot outside of that.
No, never in my life have I experienced.
Damn. All right. Well, okay, so we gotta wrap up. We're at time, but this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
I agree.